Hello, hello, and welcome to your Business in Digital, the summer wrap up. Super excited to be here. How are you doing, Andrea?
I'm great. I'm great. I'm so excited for this special edition of YBID, our summer session. I love it. Really
Awesome.
excited.
Let's kick to the intro. All right, so I love that intro. So cute, so summery. All right, so today
So
we are
fun.
talking. Right? Today we are talking about defining event success, right? The KPIs that truly matter. And we're going to unpack this in about 20 minutes. So I'm going to give a little context. We've done like a few events, right? We did the MSME in Trinidad. Super excited to be. I'm so glad to be there with you guys. That was so much fun. You and Dana were awesome. You guys put together a hell of a show. And then we also did. I was working with Chef Shawanna from Jamrock Eats, and we did a Caribbean Sun Feast event. And from that, we pulled together a KPI document, right? And I shared it with you, and we talked a little bit about how could we showcase and talk a little bit about the KPIs from an event and how do we get to those same things you talk about all the time, the cash flow, those really important metrics. So that document gave us, a show to talk about because we're living and breathing the KPIs. What does success mean? All that good stuff. So I am super, super excited about this conversation today. So we're talking defining event success, the KPIs that truly matter. So let's jump in, Andrea. So first point I think we have is um, where did we start, right? Where did we start with the event?
Yes.
So you go for it.
So absolutely. So this topic, I loved how this topic just flowed first because this really came out of legitimate discussion about your event and the fact that you were going back to the organizers to tell them, well, this is how we did, etc. And I loved that we started to talk about it, and I was like, people don't really define event success for their event, and they go about and they do these events, and then they're not sure if they've really hit their targets. They're not sure if they've really truly had an event success. So this led us to try to figure out, well, what are some of the things, what are some of the KPIs, some non-traditional as well, that people should be paying attention to, that will allow them to say, hey, this event was a success. I don't know, 6 out of 10, 8 out of 10, rate it in some sort of way for them to know their money made sense. So we landed on a couple of KPIs where we said, well, okay, if you were to define event success, what are some of the things that people should be looking at? So we have about a couple KPIs that we will go through these slides now to say, well, think about these things, but think about it both in the traditional sense and in the non-traditional sense. Because when we go through these KPIs, you're going to see there's always going to be a number, but you also have to add a little bit of analysis beyond the number, which is what I think we want to tackle.
Yeah, no, 100%. I love that, right? The analysis behind the number. What does it mean? And because there's insights that come from it, right? And that's where we
Correct.
play together, right? Because I love those
Absolutely.
insights.
The
So the
insights
number,
have to make sense. And what I always say as well, and I always say this on the show, you have to take it with context. So
yeah,
we will see as we unload these couple of KPIs that we're going to talk about, we have to take it within context of what you've done. So
yeah.
don't just say the number is bad. Why is the number bad? Is it bad for your context? It might be good for somebody else's context. So just always remember that. Let's look at the insights that matter and that are relevant to us.
And so in this event that we did, it was called Caribbean Sun Feast, and it was in Lake Nona where I live. So we kind of were targeting this Caribbean audience and people who had been to the Caribbean. And we partnered with a chef who created this fantastic menu and, some elevated Caribbean food. So it was really interesting because what we had to do was we got some sponsorship dollars, right? So we used that for advertising. We had to invest in the ingredients. We got the place where we hosted it. So it was a pop-up event. We host the place. We had to pay for that. So we had to pay for a few different things. And we had to then, again, we wanted to showcase some stuff. So I think let's start talking about, we ran ads to build awareness so that people, because it was a brand new brand. It was an idea. It was just, we pulled it together in a month. And so it was just like, okay, cool, let's do this. So we what we saw is that we were able to sell about 47 meals. We spent in its entirety about $774. And then we ended up with about over 1,000, almost $1,100, right? So that was like the test brand awareness. But then also we saw other numbers, right? There's a lot of the pickup and following, the reach, the visibility. We did
Right.
TV, we did press. So there are some other numbers, and this is the first time we've done this, and we did it in a very short time frame. So that's like the backstory there, right? So let's jump in and talk a little bit about the ads first, yeah? So
Yes.
the ad spend versus the revenue generated. So we spent about $160 in advertising. We ran ads across Facebook and Instagram. We spent about $160 in advertising. And so the revenue we generated was that $1,100, right? So what are your thoughts there?
So, right out the gate, we are seeing where, from a revenue perspective, you've covered what you spent in advertising, right? Now, so the first point is yes, this is a positive. What I would say is a positive result in your KPI. You've generated, in terms of revenue, you've generated more than what you spent. Now, this KPI is very specific to these two factors: your ad spend versus your revenue spend. This is not the entire event, right? We're just basically saying, based on the ads that I spent, I'm comparing it versus the revenue that I generated, and I'm seeing that for each dollar of of ad that I put out, I got X amount in revenue. That's the type of analysis that you can do, and you could see it's a wide range, right? But this is not, and this is a popular KPI. Or if it's, well, it's a simple KPI. I don't use the word popular. It's a simple KPI that would allow you to identify your first marker of success, right? Because it's a very easy calculation to see. Ad spend is real, right? We're not talking accrued anything. We're not talking accounting. We're talking straight spending here. I charged my card $106 and I got back $1,100 in revenue. So I love this KPI for its simplicity, right? And also for straight up first indicator of success, because you're saying this was the first amount of money, this is an early amount of money that I spent, and I got X amount. And you mentioned how short your time frame was. So here's the considerations now, that when you start to take this KPI, here's the considerations that you should be looking at. Well, how long did I run the ads for? If I ran these ads for what you are saying as a marketer in a relatively short period of time, and I still was able to recoup my money, then that says a lot about the quality of the ad, and the effort that was put out, right?
Yeah, no,
So
100.
if,
Yeah, you're
if
spot on there. Yeah, you're absolutely right there because it was so the idea from conception to execution was a month. Ads were probably about 2 weeks.
even
So
less,
that
even
right,
less.
even less. So yeah, and again, so and the ads and people showed up. People said, "I saw the ad on Instagram." So we know at least there's a direct
There was a
correlation
direct relationship, right?
to people buying,
Right. And
right?
that,
the other channels also brought us sales too. But you're right, this is the first number, and that's yeah, it's kind of where we went with it. So that makes total sense.
Yeah. So I love to, like I say, this is the very first point I think of indicator of success that you can look at your ad spend versus your revenue spend. That gives you a very rough number as to your first line of activity or first line of success. So, right.
Yeah, the next one was the landing page views. So that was really interesting for us as well too, because that was an indicator of um, how many people actually came to the site, right? So the ads itself reached about 4,000 people, but then about 764 people came to the website. We had 764 visits to the site because that's not unique visits, right? So unique meaning that one person, just counting one person, not how many times they came. So we had over 764 page visits, and I'm gonna add in this other indicator as well too. The time on site on that landing page was about 5 minutes. The average time was about 5 minutes on that landing page. So that gave us, and you're a CFO, so just you're hearing these numbers and you're like, okay, wait, so there's some engagement there, right? There's people
Yeah.
are leaving the ad. So the ad reached 4,000 people. From the 4,000 people that the ad reached, roughly, let's say we had people come back, but let's say we had 700 visits, over 700 visits to the site. It's them spending 5 minutes going through a page that has the menu. It talks a little bit about the chef. It has a video of the location. It has like information on it where they can purchase their tickets. So people are going back and forth looking at the pictures, and it was like really food rich, right? So yeah, so what do you think about that KPI? Because it's still not a financial KPI.
Correct. It's not a financial KPI, but it leads to something bigger, right? This says this is the potential amount of people that saw and interacted with our event and potentially wants to come. You could then take this total views and compare this to other things in the event. You could then take, well, out of the 700 people that viewed, we eventually converted to four. I think what eventually was your attendance rate? Was it about how much people eventually came? You could
So I mean, we had over 20 some odd people, and we sold about 40. We sold 47 meals exactly.
right. So 20. So you talked about, so you moved from, you could then take this now and say, well, out of the 700 people that viewed, about 20. So this is a nice number to understand. This number says I now have about 700 people that want to understand this event and was interested in this event that I could then turn around and put later on. I could then turn around, and I think we'll see it in the next slide when we move to the next KPI. I could then turn around and see how they eventually convert and boil right down to the 20. So I like this, I like that KPI of total views to landing page, because it's your first point, and it's the point to um more to the next level. You could then say total views versus the ads, right? How much each view cost you, right? I spent $106 and I got 700 people looking, right? They
Yeah,
came through somehow. So it's a nice place to start. So total views is that great point to start analyzing how much people you got the attention of.
absolutely. And it tells us also, right, the cost per click per landing page
Correct.
view. So we understand all
Right.
those things, understand click-through rates. So we're able to compare those numbers over to the numbers that are industry standard numbers as well. And then we have
Yeah.
a click-through rate from who saw all the way to who converted. And
All
then
the
we
way
have
down. Yeah.
so we just broke it. I nerded out a little bit in my presentation. And I'm like, here are all my levels of conversion.
Which
Yeah, I can't
which
help
which leads us nicely into this one here, the conversion
it.
rates through the sales funnel. So
Yeah,
when you are analyzing the event, the success of your event, let's look at how are people converting through the sales funnel. So if you've been following us, You don't know that we talk about the sales funnel on this show all the time. If you can't remember this, as Michelle always says, go back, check the other shows where we talk about sales funnel. But your sales funnel is just basically how you move people from knowing you at the start to then eventually buying from you and trusting you and liking you, that know, like, trust process. Each one of these things in the sales funnel has its own conversion rate that you could walk through. We didn't go into specifics and all the conversion rates here, but we just want to understand that take your sales funnel and use your sales funnel to calculate the different conversion rates. How did we move from the 700? Because we started off with the landing page views. That would have been the top, the brand awareness. Actually, we
It would
moved
have been
from the start of where the ads reached. The ads
hmm,
reached 4,000. So you had
people.
4,000, then you came down to 700, and then eventually you boiled all the way down to 20. The numbers at each point of the numbers in each stage provides its own story, right? So
Yeah,
you reached 4,000, that was the brand awareness, and then eventually you got to 700. You could then you could do a comparison between the 4,000 and the 700, and then the stage below that, when the click throughs, how much time they spent. You talked about time, how much time they
yeah,
spent on the site. You could then take the number of people that were on the site and calculate another average. Well, on average, each person was spending X amount of time on the
yeah,
site, which then says that the marketing or the copy that you had on your page made sense, right? So for me as a CFO, I'm thinking, okay, well then the money I paid the copywriter or the person who designed the web page, that made sense because they spent 5 minutes on the page reading through
right,
everything. And that's what you
right,
want. That's the return that you want to see. So it's important to take your sales funnel and at each level, know the number as they move through till eventually the 20 that you got that actually attended, you would then take this 20. Are they now brand ambassadors that you could then, based on the reviews that you got, do you then say, well, hey, we now have 20 people solid that if I reach out to them for my
yeah,
next event and I say, bring a friend for 10% off, I'm going to get my 20 is going to turn into 40.
right,
All of these are good indicators of success, right? So which is why we haven't even, you realize I haven't even spoken about finances yet. I've left finance for last because I believe all of these things, while it is not point directly to a finance number, it is an important number that you need to understand to define what your event success is.
right. So brand awareness, let's talk about that a little bit. We saw the brand awareness. We were able to reach a significant amount of people. And we also have that breakdown of, again, how the time on site to who came in from where, all those things. So we understand that more people saw it, a lot of people engage with it, how they engage with the ads. So now we can start running retargeting ads to those people, even on that level of the people, 4,000 people that saw
The
it. We can start
4,000.
retargeting exactly and moving those people over to get email addresses, right? Because we did the brand awareness first, get to a place of email addresses, focus on those people, drive them, collect their email addresses, and then sell to them via email. So that's really the next step. We were able to hit a specific audience as well too in a specific place. So the brand awareness numbers are also indicators of success for us too.
Yep, the brand, and I want to point out here, this is where you now compare how you did in this your marketing plan, how effective it was. This is very specifically talking about, well, how did we do in terms of our reach? Because here's where it could mean, if you had set out to reach, if you had set out to reach 3,000 people tomorrow in your original goal, then by saying that you reached 4,000 means, well, okay, we reached more than for more than what we set out to reach. So for that particular comparison, you would say you were successful. But here's where you could spin it here. What if the demographic of those people that you met was turned out to be different to who you had intended? What if
Right,
in reality, the people that ended up engaging with the post wasn't necessarily the people that you were trying to look for, or that audience demographic? That could say a lot as well. That is information that you could now then use to tweak your marketing plan, because then it
Yep.
says, well, maybe you could have done differently. So it's really brand awareness is really important to understand. Well, from a very specifically from the marketing perspective, how successful was the marketing efforts there? Did it reach the people that we wanted to reach?
Yeah, and it did reach the people because we knew we were going to see people of the Caribbean diaspora. We also knew that we were going to see people who had had Caribbean food before or had that experience of being to the Caribbean, having a great meal. So the one we didn't expect was the date night audience, which was
Right.
kind of which was special, which was just like, okay, here's an opportunity where we can talk about that a little bit more, before you head out to your, thing. Here's this little
Here's
gourmet,
a
pop
so
up that you can do, you know.
so again, we're pointing to areas of success that
Right.
because if you're saying to me, hey, we didn't realize that people were looking at this as a date night event, that's now a segment that you could then turn around and target. So from a success side, when again sitting back and looking at your events and defining the success, that could be a feather in your cap, as they say, to say, this event taught us that we were tweaking it this way, but our audience is saying that we should go this way. And again, as a CFO, if I'm sitting and I'm looking and I'm trying to define if my money was well spent, these are the type of non-financial or non-direct money factors that could indicate that the money was well spent, because you were able to learn things from the audience and you were able to take this home and say, here's how I could then use this information to generate even more revenue at the next event, which leads us nicely into financial success, right? Let's get into some finance numbers now, because I'm not saying that event success is only about the non-financial things. We still have to have a level of finance considerations in there. And these are the two things I want to touch on. So the first thing is the cash flow consideration. So in your event, cash flow is flowing in and out. You need to define, first of all, were you able on a cash basis? Did you have enough money flowing in and out? So financial success looks like, did I have to reach into my pocket to to fund this thing at any point in time, right? Because I always, whenever I speak about cash flow, I always talk about sources of cash, uses of cash, and timing, right? So in this event, was I able to have money flowing throughout? In your case, I heard you mention a sponsor. If you have a sponsor in your event, then that means you probably didn't have to reach into your pocket, because the money was successfully funded by a sponsor. If not, if you did not have a sponsor, it may have required you to inject money into the business, into the event. Sorry, it might have required you to inject money. So you want to understand, well, how was I able to meet the obligations from before the event, when I had to spend money to put ads, all the different prep, all the different down payments I had to make, all the way through to the end of the event? Did I have enough money left over to pay my vendors, the balance left over and everything? What was the cash flow considerations there? The second thing is cash success versus profitability. So what I mean by that is, on the face of it, how much money did I spend versus how much money that came in? So in your case, you spoke about revenue of about 1100. When I add up all the things that when you add up all the things that you had to spend money on, was it more or less than the 1100 that you made?
It
Right?
was less. It was
That's
we spent
right.
$74,
So
right?
from a cash success, you've made a surplus, right? However, that does not necessarily mean that the event was profitable if you did not factor everything. If you didn't pay yourself a salary, which is what we all usually does not happen, right? We don't ever look to pay ourselves. you know if we got somebody donating their time or their service, now this is where the sponsorship coming, but let's say somebody was offering to help and say, no problem, I'll do that for you, I'll come and I'll be your MC, I'll be your DJ, no problem. You didn't necessarily pay for them, right? But what I always look at is, if you were to pay for them, would your event still have been profitable? Would you still have that money left over? So there's cash success, versus profitability. All these different things that may not have resulted in a cash expense, but it is expense nonetheless for the event that you need to consider. So you want to be able to make the differentiator between having a successful KPI as it pertains to cash versus overall the profitability of events. And that means picking up all these different things that may not have resulted in money leaving your pocket.
Such an interesting way to really pick the event apart. But so necessary, right? To kind of go through. As I was working on that document, I was just like, this is really solid because it tells us kind of the story behind everything. It gives us the opportunity to say, hey, we can do this again. There's some those success indicators, the non-financial ones, tell us that there's an audience there that's very interested. That we, for the first time, we were able to break through some new barriers. And now there's some people who are interested who we can continue to move down that funnel. They're not lost to us in that funnel. They're just like, who are we? What's this good? They need the referral. So now we have reviews, we have different things that we can really step up. We also understand that we did a lunch and dinner service. We understand where we can focus our energies on because we could probably focus on lunch. So it really gave us so much information, and which is the blueprint for the next event, which is in a month. And then we'll do the same document again to kind of keep moving to see, all right, cool, how are we moving the needle? So we know that we weren't profitable. We saw cash success, but we also understand that we have to put some effort behind it, and it has to be consistent. And we have to do it again, and we have to do it again, and we have to do it again. And then the goal is the next time that we do it, that we're using that $1,100 as the base of to pay for everything, right? So that
There you
we
go.
don't have to take pocket. So yeah, it
So
was
furthering your cash success. So furthering your cash success, you're taking the cash from one event and infusing it into the next event. So your next event has a head start, right, in terms
right.
of money's available.
Yeah,
Absolutely, that's great.
100%, 100%. This was good. This was good. We should do stuff like this. I feel like so real world and it makes sense. And so if businesses are thinking about profitability, thinking about cash flow, this is a great way to wrap, your event in a place where you're always thinking about those KPIs. They're so important to the
Correct.
business. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's really about just taking that additional step to analyze things within the context of your space. So like we said here, these KPIs, not all of them point directly to money, but they can still indicate a success. Even if your event tomorrow was the reverse in that you didn't make enough sales to cover your expenses, it still didn't mean that the event would not have been a success because we talked about all the other different things. We talked about the conversion through the funnel. We talked about the visits to the landing page. These are all other KPIs that you can define and say, you know what, this is still a successful event to us because A, B, C, and D. We've reached this, we've done this, and time. I think that was a critical one too, the time in which you were able to pull this off. So imagine what you could do with more time. So I think it's just I just want to make sure that people understand it's not just about how much money did you make from the event. It's also about what were the other KPIs that you were able to touch and that you were able to impact that could give you a more holistic view of your success of your event.
And I love that this is a conversation that as a CFO that you're having because you're looking at beyond just the what's in the bank and what got to the bank. You're seeing the movement, and that's information that you guys need, right? So these digital KPIs have
Correct.
given you a new perspective to say, okay, great, we can invest into this. If you were the CFO, hey, continue to invest into this, and over the next 6, now we can start setting those real goals. Over the next 6, we want to increase the rate by blah blah blah, and we can start really putting those goals behind it, so we can grow it and start working towards that because we understand that the market is there. So, in testing it, understanding that market is there, there's a viability for this new product. So this was a good conversation.
Absolutely.
Define event success, the KPIs that truly matter. Yay!
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right. So we are at our 30 minutes. Thank you so much for joining us. We had such a great time with you. We know it's short, but it's summertime, and we want to give you those bite-sized bits. So Andrea, I always have a lot of fun with you. This was awesome.
This is
Do
awesome. Let's do it again.
it again. Absolutely. All right. Take it easy, guys. Have a great rest of the summer. We'll see you very, very soon. Take care.